Hey everybody, Clay Archer, CEO DVC Technology, and I've got another great one today. You may have noticed a theme that I've been kind of leaning in towards lately of, is Unifi trying to get into the managed service provider space? Are they trying to work in the SMB and enterprise markets? Well, I've got a really cool video today about their new product, the EFG. So by the specs, this new Enterprise Fortress Gateway is a very impressive device. Unifi was super generous and sent a couple of these over for me to review. I've been playing with them for the past few weeks, and this video is going to be my review of the product and who I think this product is really for. This is a very, very impressive piece of hardware, and let's get into who this is for. So without any further ado, let's jump right into the software. So I'm going to break this up into two parts. The first part will be a deep dive into the Enterprise Fortress Gateway. And the second part, and probably the part I'm even more excited about, is the new MSP program that they're putting together. So let's jump into the Enterprise Fortress Gateway itself. I mean, as you can see by the specs here, this is an amazing device. This is a device that you would run in a large branch or a campus type environment where there are a lot of devices and a lot of people that you are managing. Let's jump into those specs real quick. So it does 12.5 gigabit per second routing with IDS and IPS on. So this is a monster of a router. It's got two 25 gig SFP28 ports. It's got two 10 gig SFP plus ports and two 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports. And all of those are LAN WAN compatible, which is really cool. It will do license-free real-time inspection of encrypted packets with their Next AI inspection tool. I'll go deep into that. We'll play with that tool here in a bit in the future, but there is a free version of that, and then there is a paid version of that. And we'll go into what those two look like, and we'll go ahead and turn that on and show you what the differences are. It's got shadow mode, high availability with automatic failover, which is awesome, very similar to the other devices they've been putting out lately, like the UDM Pro Max. It also runs the full unified network for stack management. I think that's a real game changer, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the MSP portion of this video. The other features, they have dual hot swap power supplies for power redundancy, which is awesome, and they sell those power supplies separately. So that's awesome that that's a serviceable part of this device, and obviously, if you put two of these together in that high availability, you would have 4 hot swappable power supplies, which is pretty incredible. They are also going to be releasing an independent gateway counterpart to the EFG called the Gateway Enterprise. And that can be managed with a Cloud Key, official Unifi hosting, or you can self-host it with a Unifi network server. And I'm not going to go too much into that, but that is going to be available with the same pricing at time of launch. So let's jump into the software real quick. I just want to kind of go through what's new and what's different here. I will start off by saying two things. One, Unifi was really gracious to send these 2 units out. But second of all, it is very difficult to test enterprise hardware in a home lab type environment. Second of all, this really needs to be tested in production. Obviously, these devices that can control thousands of endpoints need to really be pushed. And no home lab is really going to be pushing, 12 gigabit per second throughput with IPS. But that being said, I have had this for the last couple months, and I've been putting it through spaces, and it is a very, very impressive device. So the first thing right off the bat is it is the Unified Network interface that you're always used to seeing. If we go into the controller itself, you can see that I've got the two in there. They are in sync. I am not in failover mode right now. I've been playing with that, turning it on and off, and I will show you how that goes through. To set up the Shadow Gateway is very similar to the way the UDM Pro Max was. You take a line out of one of the LAN ports on the primary EFG, and you put it into the WAN port, internet port on the Shadow Gateway. It will then recognize it, and you will just add it to protect like you normally did. It will recognize that device, and then it will walk you through what it's doing, either on the display on the unit itself or on your screen. Once you get them connected, it's super easy. It walks you through with explainers the same way that it did with the UDM Pro Max. So that's awesome. If one fails, it'll automatically switch over to the next one. Going into network, this I think is one of the biggest features of this device is that it is the network interface that we're used to seeing. So it is using the firewall that you would get on a UDM Pro. In our MSP, we are a Sonic Wall shop. I particularly like the Unifi interface. I would like the way the routing and the setup works in the Unifi interface. So that may be different for you. Like I said, we're a Sonic Wall shop. I think the Sonic Wall interface is very cryptic and very hard to understand, and I find the Unifi interface to be much easier to navigate. So let's just jump in really quickly. I'm going to go into kind of the biggest feature here that we've got under security. There is this new feature called Next AI. Basically what it's doing is it's taking the all encrypted traffic, it's decrypting it, it's reading it, and then it's re-encrypting it. Obviously in here, it's analyzing Is this the bad stuff? Is this, stuff that we don't want coming through? Or is it something that we want coming through? It's also logging search history, which you will be able to see at inspection. So then it re-encrypts it and it sends it on its way. You can see in here, there are several different ways that you can set this up. I'm not going to change it right now. I'll come back here in a second because if I change it, I'll have to reset up. But I've been running it on simple for the most part. I think that the defaults are pretty good. You can see target networks are default. You could edit your networks here and you could put it on other networks. I've just been running it on default. Default traffic types, I can change the traffic types here to just do web browsing, email IMAP, or email SMTPS. So yeah, obviously you can change, the levels that you want to do this packet inspection. Obviously, for security purposes, there may be certain areas that you do not want to inspect all packet. If this was a bank or a healthcare provider or something where there are certain restrictions as to what you can or cannot do, you may or may not want to turn either things on or off for certain segments of those environments. So you can do inspected domains, you can do all, you can do specific, you can do exclusions, and you can create actions. And so then under actions, you can actually, block specific queries, block specific file types, or block specific URLs. So that's pretty cool. You can do kind of granularly there. You can say, I don't want any bitmap files. And that brings us back kind of to who this device is for. There is a certain amount of management that you're going to have to do on these devices. But obviously, if you're going to put this in a large environment, it's going to have to be managed because you're going to get service requests when you start blocking things. And that's really just a balancing act between the tightest security possible and letting end users do their day-to-day activities. But this is not the type of device that you just throw on the network, you click one button, you let it run. That's not the use case for this. And obviously, with its competition and where it's placed in the market, nobody is just going to put this in and not manage this device. With that being said, so you go in here and you can edit the different blocked websites, invalid certificates, untrusted certificates, insecure, high risk, medium risk, invalid domains. All really cool. But there's a pretty neat feature here, and this is, again, has to be managed, that this is doing this with a Unifi SSL certificate. And what you're able to do here is on the machines that are going to be using this, you download an SSL certificate and you put it on that machine for each user that is going to be using the machine. Now you need to manage this for everybody that is going to be inside of the network that has NextAI turned on. So if somebody goes in without the certificate, they're going to get a bunch of weird blocked sites. That's the way that it is managing what is able to go through to this machine and not able to go through the machine is with this SSL certificate. So that's another thing to consider. If you are going to deploy this to a 300 user office, you are going to have to deploy these SSL certificates to all of their devices. The rest of it is very similar to a normal Unifi interface. I will show you here. Let's go over into Insights, and I'm going to go into Inspections here. And under Inspections, I'm going to go to Queries. And under Queries, it is now showing me every query that I've made on my PC to Google. It is logging all those, so you can see I've gone to a bunch of different spaces. I was looking up the prices of the competitors here. You can see me. And I went to the Pirate Bay. I'll show you here what you see if you click on the Pirate Bay. Obviously, it blocked that as an unsafe website. So you can also click on blocked, you can click on allowed, you can click on intrusion, and it's giving you incredible logging into all of this. And if I wanted to block this here on my TrueNAS, which I probably do, I would go in here and I would just go block connection. And what that's going to do really quickly in here is it's just going to add a firewall rule to block that traffic between those two spots. Very easy, very simple to manage. You go in here and it's going to give you a ton of information about that. I can click on advanced here. It's going to give me even more information about that particular incident. The logging on this thing is incredible, as you would expect for a router of this quality. So you can see that right out of the box, this is a very strong device with really impressive capabilities. And sticking with Unifi's ethos, this is a incredible value. This is a ton of device for a very low price. We'll get into pricing here in a minute, but what you're receiving here is a tremendous value. And on top of that, all of the features that I've shown you so far come for free. There will be an enhanced threat update component with this, and that will be a monthly charge. I'll show you really quickly how to go ahead and turn that on. You go into Unifi Site Manager and you click the little button here to activate the advanced protection, and it'll bring you a page here that shows you exactly what you're going to get with the enhanced features. Now this says $75 a month. I don't know if that's the final price at the time of shipping. I will put it down below if that changes, but you can see here, you're going to get more signatures. It's going to go from 20,000 plus to 90,000 plus. They're going to go from around 5 new signatures today to 30 to 50. They're going to give you dedicated threat research team, and they're going to give you inclusion in the Microsoft Active Protection Program coverage, which is all things that probably mean more and better. So is $75 a month worth it or not on a device like this? I think it's kind of a no-brainer when you go out and you look at the competition. So the competition that I found, and obviously, take this with a grain of salt. This is just me doing some research, but when you go to look for the competition for these devices, I came back with the FortiGate 400F, the Meraki MX450, and the SonicWall 4700. Although the SonicWall 4700 is probably really a 6700. It's hard to get a one-to-one comparison here. The big feature here is the 12 gigabit per second throughput. And to get this, you have to go to pretty high-end devices. But SonicWall also has those 25 gig SFP connections, which, on the SonicWall, you have to go up to a higher end unit to even get that. Now, you can see pretty quickly here, we're at $10,000 plus devices here. And that's not even the kicker. The kicker for me is, being a SonicWall house, I know that the licensing is almost as expensive, and sometimes, in some cases, more expensive than the hardware. And you're going to pay for it individually. You're going to pay for VPNs. You're going to pay for advanced threat protection. It's going to go on and on and on. Hey, Future Clay here. I just want to jump in real quick. I was editing the video and I want to be very clear. There are 0 fees to run this next AI feature. So you get all of this, advanced inspection, decryption, inspection, re-encryption, all of this stuff for free. So the $75 is for the more advanced detections on this. So I think $75 a month is a no-brainer for a router of this quality and type. But that being said, you can run this router with all of its features and all of the benefits that you're going to get from this next AI for $0 a month versus the competition that is going to have some monthly subscriptions for almost every feature in it. So I just want to be very clear on this. You can run this router with full functionality at 0 cost per month. And the super big kicker for me is the price of this. The price, at this point is $1,999, and a broken power supply is going to be $119. And the UXG enterprise device is going to be $1,999 as well. That's an incredible deal for this piece of hardware. I didn't jump in here to show you how snappy it is. Obviously, in my house, I can't really push this as hard as this device needs to be, but with full Next AI turned on, you probably see a little tiny bit of latency. Obviously, anything that's going to inspect anything has got some time over turning it completely off, but this is super snappy. And I've been through several point updates on the software, and it's gotten better and better and better and better. And honestly, the point now where if I turn it on or off, it's hard for me to know. Obviously, very quickly when you turn things off because you're not able to go to all the sites that you normally would go to by default. And as I said before, this is something that needs to be managed by a professional, or you're probably going to drive people crazy with how secure this device is. 2 last little things that I want to mention before we get to the MSP part of this video that aren't necessarily EFG specific is one, Site Manager and the ability to manage multiple units from one single pane of glass. I still have a few things about Site Manager that I would like to improve on, but its ability to manage multiple devices from a single pane of glass is amazing. And some of the other vendors charge you for the right to do that. I would like to see a feature where you need 2FA to log in to a second machine from the single pane of glass. While I don't think that Site Manager is perfect at this point, I do think it's a really nice feature, and it is free, and others charge you for it. And the other thing is UID Enterprise. You might know that we use UID Enterprise here at DBC Technology. We use it to manage our access instant, but the ability to have a complete stack with Protect, Access, and Network all controlled by UID, meaning if somebody leaves the organization, you're managing that from one spot, and it's going to filter all the way down through UID Enterprise to all the different appropriate spots. But the ability to manage a huge portfolio of people on a single pane of glass for a very reasonable amount, I think is pretty incredible. And the reasons I cover those a little bit separately is because those features kind of lean me into the next part of this discussion, where we're going to talk about managed service providers. In my UDM Pro Max video, I'll leave a link down in the description or card above, I started to broach the topic of, is Unifi ready for the MSP marketplace? And I had a little bit of insider knowledge. I've had this EFG for a while now, and I see what's coming down the road. The E in the EFG here, that enterprise, is going to be a part of Ubiquiti's new naming structure. you'll see like the ultra line be their inexpensive line, their max kind of be their step above line, and the E or enterprise is going to be basically stuff that is aimed towards the MSP market or the enterprise market. So what does this mean for us? Most of the feedback that I got in the forums when I talked about Unifi for MSPs was about procurement and availability and support. And so I think that is what Unifi has leaned into here. And I'll just read you the statement from Unifi directly here. It says, this also marks the launch of our enterprise partner program for MSPs, system integrators, and installers to gain a competitive edge in the market and ultimately realize greater business opportunities. This program will begin with the EFG and expand to new products, including many of our upcoming high-end enterprise products. More details. Open to all MSPs and integrators. The MSP/integrator will work with participating distributors on deals through the program. It's going to be based on your region. There will be a form on our website which will allow us to facilitate an introduction with a participating distributor for MSPs/integrators that don't currently have one, and the benefits will be deal registration for increased profitability and deal security, dedicated pre-sale support, and product sales and training. So that's all awesome. I think distribution is the right answer here. One of the big problems we've had selling Unifi products is that the MSRP is the price that you pay for the device out in public. It's hard to make any margin on that. Best-in-class margin for managed service providers right now for hardware is 23%. Hard to mark something up that's $1,000 to $1,230 if it's stated out there on the web everywhere that is $1,000. So distribution kind of gives us a wholesale market to get that margin built back in there. And I don't know what those discounts are going to be. They may not be 23%. They may be 5%. They may be 10%. I don't know. I don't have any insight into what those are going to be, but having something in there to have some margin without having to go back to the client and say why yours is more expensive than what it is online, that will be very welcome. Also in distribution, we'll be able to kind of go up there and see what inventory is in real time like we can with most of our distribution partners. If you've been around Unifi at all over the last 24 months, let's say, you can see that there has been a concerted effort really to focus and to bring out some incredible hardware and software at an incredible value. And on the software end of things, their firewall software today, their network software today versus 36 months ago it's just night and day difference. This is a really nice piece of equipment. Their software is really good. Is there stuff that I would improve still? Yes, but you can see point after point after point release on their stuff. It's getting better and better and better. Same thing, I do a lot of camera reviews. Their Protect software has just gotten incredibly good over the last couple of years, and it is very similar in this realm. I do think it's time for MSPs to look at Unifi as a real player in this market. And that brings me to one more thing that I really think is the trump card here. The most expensive thing to me about rolling out a new piece of hardware is training. It is the usability for my staff. To get your staff to understand something and be able to use it and deploy it at a high level is expensive. It takes time, and it is not an easy thing to do. Also, on most of these gateway firewall systems, they are very cryptic, they're hard to learn, they're not intuitive, and they take some time to get used to. That brings me to Unifi. I think this interface is good. I think this is a really good interface. Coming from SonicWall, my opinion may be different than yours. You may be coming from Meraki or Fortinet or whatever it is and go, hey, my Sophoses are great and I love them. And that may be true, but I think this is a great interface. And the big kicker for me, if we do move to Unifi for our routing needs, is the ease of use. And this interface is the same interface that is in a new Cloud Gateway Ultra. For $129, let's just say I wanted to teach 10 employees how to use this interface. I can buy 10 of those for $129, give them to all of them, or for $199, give them all the new Gateway Max, and they have a device now that they can bring to their house and play with on a daily basis. And one of the big things for managed service providers in teaching people stuff is our employees are curious, they are smart, they are techies. And if you give them a cool piece of gear to use at home and say, hey, install a Plex server, install some cameras, install some WAPs, install a Proxmox, do some virtualizations, do a reverse proxy setup, those kind of things, and the fact that that interface and that $129 device is very, very similar, almost identical to the interface in this $1,999 device is awesome. So you can let them go home, play with that, spark their own curiosity, play with it, get deep into it, and understand it. And I will tell you, there is not a better way for your employees to learn something than to be using on a daily basis and being, curious about it and play with it and figure out how to use all the little nooks and crannies of it. So with that, I'm super excited about not only this new piece of incredible hardware, but this new chapter in Unifi's story and what that means for us as managed service providers going forward. I'd love to hear what you think down in the comments below. I'm sure this is going to be a pretty interesting topic of discussion. Please like and subscribe. And as always, we'll see you guys in the next video.